what fundamentally does a great conductor do that is distinct from an average one or a bad one, in your view? I mean, I'm sure there's many ways to be a great conductor, of course. Maybe the answer is, I'm answering for you, maybe the answer is that there are many ways to be a great conductor and there's only one way to be a bad one. What do you think?
No, but thinking about Dante's Inferno, I think that the sins are very much and very different. So there are so many ways of being bad. Although seriously, I see the point of what you are saying. No, I think that for me, I love very much what a sentence of Kurtag. I saw him saying this many times. Kurtag, who is not a conductor, but is one of the greatest composers and musicians of our time. And he says, my biggest enemy in playing music is when you are playing the next note and something after the first note something did not happen in your soul. So the thing is that you are allowed to go on playing only in the moment that what you are playing is transforming you for real. So this is actually the mark of a real listening, the mark that you are offering to the music and to yourself a real listening presence.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a sec. So I'm completely with you there, and I'm with Kurtag, certainly. The problem is that making music, making a performance is, of course, that. There's a transcendent dimension to it, but it's also a job. It's both things simultaneously. So for performers, for example, if you're the third trombonist in an orchestra, then you're not necessarily, and this is a caricature obviously, but you're not necessarily always thinking about transcendence. You're also thinking about doing a good job. You're thinking about intonation. You're thinking about not missing your entrance, about playing properly with the other members of your section. There's an artisanal side to it as well as an artistic side, and there's a kind of pragmatic side as well. So I think it's very easy, particularly in the high pressure environment and the very expensive environment of the way orchestras and ensembles function today, because everything is so expensive, because time is always limited. There's this sense in which, okay, we have to get on with things, and we have to, we have to make this experience happen. It has to be in tune. It has to be together, and you tend to get focused on just these very basic low level dimensions. Let's say the most basic aspect of, are we making mistakes? Are we able to get through this passage? Are we getting lost? Is it together rhythmically, and so on? And in my experience, very often, particularly with the first performance of something, when the ensemble or the orchestra doesn't necessarily know the piece all that well, that seems to be the primary concern. So how do you take a situation like that? Because it's like if you're terrified of just being able to get through the passage without making 100 mistakes, how does transcendence come into that?
I think that you named precisely what I think is the biggest mistake, but it's also unexcusable. And I think, really, I do believe that the practical situation of the concerts today, where of course you don't have 3 weeks, you are already happy if you have 2 hours to rehearse a symphony which is of 45 minutes. But this cannot be an excuse not to work on the artistic part, because the mistake of the attitude which you named, which is unfortunately the most common attitude in the musical working process, is that, okay, there is first a practical part of the work which is more connected to the handwork, so to speak. And then when we have time, we can speak about great art. But without the first, you cannot make the second. This is absolutely wrong. Even in teaching, there are many teachers who teach instrument or conducting like that. The thing is that if you play C major for hours on your instrument, and only when you have played C major very fast without making mistakes, you go to a Mozart sonata or Beethoven sonata. The fact is that when you find C major in Mozart, that's not what you have learned, because that is Mozartian C major. And when you find again C major in Beethoven, that's not what you have learned, because that's a Beethoven C major. And even in Kurtag, there are C major scales, and that's also not what you have practiced. So you have practiced something which does not exist. And not only what you have practiced is useless, but it's also a damage, because in order to be able to play a really Mozartian C major, you have to, because the body has a memory, donc you will play automatically the C major which you have in your hands, which is not the Mozartian C major. So you have to forget what you have learned and restart again.